The LCS schedule is out, and it's time for us to go through it and take a look at some of the most important games and some of the hardest weeks that we are going to have going throughout the 2023 spring split. Let's talk some TSM. We are here, and yes, the holidays are in full force right now, but so are, well, the League of Legends, announcements, I guess is what I'll call them for now. But we do have our schedule, guys, and it is very, very interesting to say the least. If you missed it in my last video, I talked about how week 1 was going to be easily the most important one for us this year, because I think, or at least this first split, because it is going to be the one where we are, how would I put this? We are not going to get something much easier. And so I want to go through the schedule real quick, talk to you guys about the weeks I think are going to be really tough coming up. We'll go over, which weeks are going to have super week and all that other jazz. So I'm not going to dive too much into this, but Immortals and CLG in week 1 on these new Thursday, Friday dates, which, again, I also talked about in a previous video if you want to hear more on the discussion around the new dates and times. But I am, again, this week is super important. It is. It's really unfortunate that this has to be our super important week. Like, I would almost rather just play 100 Thieves and Evil Geniuses this week and get it out of the way so that then we have 3 weeks where we don't have, I would say, arguably the 2 best teams in the LCS right away. But, it is what it is. So there's your first weeks. Here's the week 2, which is, again, not going to be fun because then we get Evil Geniuses in the last game of the day, which I'm sure will draw a lot of fans, especially if we do what I'm hoping that we would do, which is go 2-0 in the first week, because that game will be all important as Evil Geniuses look to continue to, I guess, not really defend their title since they didn't win it, but I don't know, they to be the best team in the LCS, arguably. And, we have a chance to kind of maybe, put them down a little bit early on. But week 2 does also include that 100 Thieves matchup, which is why I was saying I wish it would have been week 1 and not week 2, because then we would have had time to get the kinks out, all that kind of stuff. But instead, we're still getting them both relatively early on. And I'm just going to straight up tell you this. We go from our arguably easiest week to arguably our hardest week. Now, 100 Thieves are going to need time to come together, okay? Closer's the only player that is staying. Bjergsen didn't look as perfect as he normally is. Last year, Doublelift hasn't played in 2 years. Then, they've got Tenacity and Busio coming up for the first time, so they're going to definitely have their early season struggles. There's no doubt about it. If you are going to catch them, sometime in the first 2 weeks is when you want to do it. Again, I wish this would have been week 1. I still think this will probably be arguably our hardest week, and getting the middle of the day game on a Friday it's just going to be tough. So I'm not particularly looking forward to week 2, especially not compared to week 1. We head into week 3, the last week before Super Weeks get started, and we have both of the first games against Cloud9 and Team Liquid. Again, not a very easy week. Not our hardest week. I still think Cloud9 will be kind of, figuring things out. I'll be interested to see how Diplex does. But they're obviously returning 4 of their 5 championship roster players. And Berserker at this point is probably going to be very comfortable with Sven, giving us a hell of a time. And I'm not looking forward to it, because even though our bot lane is going to end up being one of our strengths, I think, this year, an unexpected one, I think, for most people, that's going to be a bot lane that can easily challenge ours. And I am just not really looking forward to it, if I'm being honest. TL come up that next week, and guys, again, this is this is going to be tough. Okay, they brought in a lot of good players, and by this point, they will have had 5 games to figure it out, at least a little bit more. And not a fun time. We then head into the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of Super Week. So it's weeks 4 and weeks 8. We get the last game of that Wednesday against Golden Guardians, a team that I think we match up pretty well against, and hopefully we'll be able to come out on top against. Then we finally get the new look FlyQuest team, the money making, Steve shooting money looking FlyQuest team that got bought out by the Florida Panthers, who I had no idea had a bunch of money or how good they were as an NHL team, but apparently they were all in on the LCS. And yeah, that team is going to be horrifying at this point because they will have had 7 games to play together, and they already have, the world's defending coach, the DRX coach and Coach Song, an old friend of ours as well. They brought in Prince. They have our boy Spica. That's the rivalry game, or I guess not the rivalry game, maybe the revenge game for him or for us, depending on which side of it you're looking at. And I'm just not looking forward to that game at all. I'm very scared of that team. So that's how we get our week started, with one probably easier game of them and then one super not easy game. Then we get Dignitas, which is going to be easily one of the biggest coin flip teams in the LCS at this point, and I am going to be very intrigued to see where they are at as well 8 weeks into the season, 8 games into the season. But, at this point, we're hitting the halfway mark in week 4, and I am already, kind of a little bit worried, if I'm being honest with you guys. This is just, this is tough. This first, obviously, we're playing everybody, so I get that part of it, but, man, it just feels like it's going to be a long season. But you watch this and maybe you have a lot more hopium than I do. Maybe it's copium at this point, but we're hoping that it's still hopium at this point. So you get out of the super week, you head straight back in, and you get CLG and Cloud9. Arguably not the worst week that you could have. Again, not the hardest week like week 2, but I think a CLG team that we'll know a lot more about at this point, seeing if they are able to keep that cohesion and whether or not it's going to pay off for CLG and that management group and the decisions that they made. And Cloud9, we already talked about, they're going to be a top team. They just are. They've got Blabber, who I think is arguably the best jungler in LCS history. Already. I think Fudge by then will probably be reveling in the fact that, we'll see where the meta's at. But again, it's looking like, some of these, it'll be interesting to see because these top lane items, from what I have seen, are very, very strong. And we will see if they will have been able to nerf them enough for it to matter by the time a game like this comes around. Heading into the latter part at this point, week 6, we get Evil Geniuses on that Thursday game, and then Team Liquid. You could argue that this is going to be the hardest week. I wouldn't be against that. I think 100 Thieves, at least in the spring split, are probably going to be a better team, maybe. I don't know. But, with Team Liquid having their 2 most important positions with younger players, I just think that they are going to need a lot of time to ramp up. So you could argue that week 6, this is week 6, is going to be our hardest week. I would not really buff you on that. And if you notice, the trend on that is in week 2 and in week 6, we get Evil Geniuses. Okay, they are going to be strong. The fact that they kept Inspired was very welcome, but also very tough surprise for all of us LCS teams that are going to be having to play them. Last couple ones here. Week 7, we get Immortals and we get Golden Guardians. You could also argue that this will be a very crucial week. Week 7, lock it down. It is by far and away our second easiest week. It's not even close to me. Again, similar trend. Immortals are there, but I also think Golden Guardians, if that team has fallen apart and is not getting the results that they're looking for, this is going to be the time period where I think they will start putting in some of their academy team or younger players, wherever they may be, from, it's academy or they signed from the street potentially. But regardless, this is where I think they will be making those changes. So if they are, then I think this becomes our easiest week. If not, and this team has been hanging around the 500 mark, then they are going to be playing us really hard, and that's why I don't think that this will be the easiest week, but it's probably the second easiest week, if not the easiest week. So weeks 1 and week 7 are going to be, again, circle them right now. those are going to be the important ones. If we can find a way to win like 3 of 4 games in those 2 weeks, then realistically, we only need to win 4 or 5 more games throughout the rest of the entire year to be able to make a playoff push. Last week is a super week, like I talked about. We get 100 Thieves, which is going to be tough. Dignitas, which is, again, still a coin flip. They're generally going to be stronger than us, I think, but we'll have to see. Who knows? They are another team that I think could really collapse, and I do think their bot lane is absolutely a problem compared to the rest of their team. And then we end the year, or the split, on FlyQuest, which, if we are fighting for our playoff lives at that point, that game is going to be very, 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 very important, and one that I really don't know if we will win. This FlyQuest team looks absolutely deadly. It is a very different form of deadly from the past, where they were able to make the best out of the players that they were given. And yeah, guys, that's it for our schedule. I don't know. Let me know. Like, what game are you most looking forward to? I'm telling you, weeks 1 and 7, I think, are going to be so beyond important for how this team is going to be able to really survive, to make playoffs. I do wonder if maybe we'll be a better playoff team, since this is still best of 1s, not best of 3s. I'm still disappointed that even with the day change, they didn't make those changes. But yeah, that is our schedule. That is the first 18 games of the year for us, and I'm really excited to be getting back into it. It feels like we haven't watched TSM play in forever. I know it's only been a couple months, but it feels like forever. And while, yes, I'm not overly excited about this team necessarily, there are players, again, our bot lane in particular, that I'm really interested to see play, and where I believe that, if we're going to win, it's going to require Boogie to, be able to play at an LCS level. And I think Neo and Chime are going to have to absolutely be a focal point for us. So I'm really interested to see where you guys think about this schedule. What are your predictions for records? I will be going over that here once we get a little closer to the season. I'll start making actual predictions for you guys, especially some of the rosters are still a little bit technically in flux, but we generally know who's going where. But yeah, other than that, I'll catch you guys on the next one.